I think the thing about money is that this sounds terrible, right? This is going to sound terrible. But when you get money, you can do what you want, right? Whatever you want, you can do it, right? It depends on how much money you get, right? But the thing is that what humans want isn't that pretty, basically. So it's kind of better if you don't get what you want. In other words, it's better if you always have to earn. You're always having to fucking like cooperate with people. Like I know people that in the billionaire category, and they literally never. It's so hard to explain this to people if you don't have friends like this, but they never need you, any humans, for anything. Like literally, they never need anybody. The only person they ever need is like a cardiologist when they have a heart attack. They need that, right? But there's just very few things like that in life. They just don't need. They don't need people. And like as a normal person, like say a lower class or a middle class or upper middle class, or even a high class person, you always need people. Like you need your family. You need your mother. You need people to be nice to you. But there's a level where you literally don't need anything. And I think we live in this dream, as normal people, where we think that we're doing all these things because we're a good person. But actually we need things. Like we need to cooperate to share this room. Otherwise it's too expensive. And then we end up kind of like not going on that many trips, right? Whereas if we're all together and we're all sharing it and sharing bananas and sharing, then we all have a great time. Like you eat variety and you don't have to, you know what I mean? Like, and also we can help each other out because you lose a wallet. Some of the guy's going to say, well, you're covered, right? And you're like, you don't have to, like by yourself, like but there's a level of money where, like, I guess what it is you are a fish in water, but you don't know it. And the water is that you can't do what you want because you don't have insane, endless money. And so you always have to cooperate with people. You always have to do stuff. And that forced cooperation is what makes you a good person, basically. Because you're not always doing what you want. Like you might want to do something, but you don't do it because you know it would hurt the relationship or you'd get arrested or something, right? And then you couldn't get out of it, right? So you don't do it. And so it's like, I think a lot of people, this is what I think. I think a lot of the SJWs, a lot of like modern society, and probably if you don't think about it, you probably think this way, is that you're basically a good person just coming out of, you're just a good person. Like it's just a good person and yeah, you just have to, it just comes out of you, right? But it's actually, you're kind of like probably not so easy to get along with, probably not so nice. But by needing to do these things over years and decades, you basically become a good person because you're kind of forced to. You're forced to have good manners. You're forced to consider people all the time. You really are. You're forced to, like. Let me just give you an example of the difference in like you can't really imagine as a normal person. Like I've been with guys who, like right now we have this, we're in it with pension and Ohama, right? And the guy who runs it is like a Nazi, right? Like with the rules, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, he tried to apologize to me yesterday, which was interesting, very interesting actually. I like him a little better actually for what he said, but well, that's another time. But basically, there's like a total Nazi guard running this place. Like every rule has to be followed, right? Every little thing, sandals here, like it's crazy, right? And so we are putting up with this crap because this is the only place that's open, right? That we can all hang out in this beautiful beach. We can walk to the beach and be in the surf, right? Without taking a bus or anything, right? So, and it's fucking beautiful, right? So we are compromising, right? Like I was with people who they would literally go down to the guy and he would say, this, and he would say, look, I don't like you and I don't like this place. How much to buy this hotel? Like, just who owns this place? And he's like, well, it's not for, just tell me who owns it. Just who fucking owns this place? Like, and he just says, how much is it worth? Like, he looks online, he gets somebody to call, whatever, finds out. And then he says, this is worth $1.5 million. He goes, I'll give you 25 right now, cash. I'll have it wired in your house by this afternoon. 25 million. get the fuck out of here. I don't want to see you again. Take your shit and get out here in an hour. And the guy's like, he like literally does it. Because he's like, well, fuck, you know. The owner's like, hell yeah, 25 million. If that's in writing, like, let's do it, you know. And that's the way they operate. They literally will just tell you to fuck off. Like, and it's nothing to them. It's nothing. It's like, get out of my way, you know. And now the guy is a dick, right? And you kind of want to do that. You kind of, there's part of you like revenge, because we're always, as normal person, we're always kissing ass a little bit. Right. All humans are kind of kissing ass and kind of like not exactly saying what we think at some level. I'm not saying it should be a fake. I'm saying like this is the reality with the fish we are, right? As human, like interacting. And we're kind of forced to do stuff. Like think about it. If nobody's looking, you're eating a banana, right? Walking down the street. You can just throw the peel into a bush, right? If no one's looking, because it will biodegrade after about 4 million years, right? Bananas don't biodegrade very quickly, right? They're not like orange peels; like they're pretty long. Yeah, they're there for a long time, right? It's basically a fantasy, right? So you basically, but if no one's looking, even if you knew that, you're still like just throw it in a bush, right? It's not like throwing nuclear waste, right? Like you're not a terrible like out there poisoning, you know. You're just like, fuck this banana. But as long as nobody's watching, then you just fucking... and so the thing is when you deal with people like with real money, like people with money, like the guys I'm talking about, they make 25 million every day, every hour. Like the money just never stops coming in. Like literally it just comes in. They have a, what's it called? A family office. And the guy's got it in several, like, very, very smart. He manages like crazy. Like, he's done it. His family, like, these family offices, the good ones, they've been going for, like, 250 years. Like, they're, like, I know a Norwegian one that's just, like, it's just been going on for, like, hundreds of years. And they even have a bank. Like, it's, like, no one else can use it, but they have, like, a bank. And I was working with the guy who was running it once. So I found out all about it. I was like, wow, this is so interesting. Like, a bank just for a family, you know? Wow. Yeah. Because that's how much money Norwegians are super rich, right? They got fucking cash, right? And this family is like insane money. So you literally are like that all the time. Like you can just buy anybody. And if you can't, then who cares? You buy the next, you know, like you just, and so that's fine. But the main thing is that we can't just take Ozempic, right? Because we want to be healthy. So we got to work hard, think, criticize ourselves, pause when we reach for that fucking cream-filled fucking whatever the fuck it is, you know, and we have to like discipline ourselves and go through all this work to be healthy because we don't want to just take steroids or eat Ozempic, right? Like this is like kind of the Ronin styles, and we're going to do it the hard way, the right way, and it's going to be worth it, right? And that's kind of like, that's basically the way. And I think that's the only way, really. This other shit is like the fucking side effects are crazy. And the fear of cancer and everything. You just fucking, it's stupid, right? So basically, you got stupid people taking shortcuts. You got smart guys who are going through a lot of pain and struggles in order to do things right? And then you got people who don't have to do anything. And those people, it really end up, they live a very different life. So whether you would love to be a billionaire or not, or a multi-billionaire, you're not. So instead, you're a normal person. And I think it's good to realize how much you kiss ass, like to the bus driver, to the, you know what I mean? Like you need that ride, right? You know what I mean? You don't want them to kick you off the fucking bus, right? Here in you know, Shimoda, right? Like you know what I mean? Like you hitchhike and then you're nice to the people, right? And you're constantly dressing so that people think you're like normal. And then I think it's through all that struggle and all that cooperation that in the end is the difference between like a trust fund baby and a regular person. Because at the end of your life, you've worked so hard, like Japanese people, right? They've worked there so hard on their jobs, right? They work. They're always cleaning and they're always following the rules. And then when they're old, like they that's just who they are. They just like naturally take care of people. They naturally are concerned with people. They naturally make sure things are right. You know, they don't just do it just because, you know, like it was a rule. It's just that needs to be done. Like we should do that. Like those leaves should be picked up, and they just kind of. And I think it's good to realize like your situation, you know, Because don't be in a fantasy where you think you're a good person and you're just doing everything because you're good. Because that's like just not the case in my, like, you need to do it the hard way. You know, like I'm sore right now. I realized this morning, I was walking up the stairs. I was sore from lifting weights last week. But now that I realize the soreness, lifting weights is kind of gone now. Pretty much, right? Ready for the gym again on Monday or Tuesday, right? And I realized I'm sore from swimming, catching like a million waves, right? Because the typhoon came through, we're catching wave. And I realized, shit, I've never been sore from swimming or body surfing, because usually I'm doing it consistently, right? Now I haven't done it in a long time. So I realized like my body's a little sore. And it's because I got to earn it again, right? So I can't wait to get out there and catch a million waves, right? Because I want to get out there. Because I realized I was ignoring some muscles in my body, right? And if I ignore things long enough, you go to shit, right? So fuck that, right? I am not going to ignore shit. And I'm not going to say like, oh, when I was younger. No, it's like right now. I got to move. I got to swim more, right? I got to swim more, And so I think I really think that it's that daily struggle where we try to be nice to each other. We try to ignore our, you know what I mean? Like we got to take a piss, but everybody's going to catch the bus. So we're like, well, fuck, I'll take a piss later. I'll hold it, It's just because the group might miss the bus, right? So like, I'm not going to go fucking take a piss and then let the whole group miss the bus and wait 40 minutes, or maybe no bus, right? And where there's 2 taxis and you know what I mean? So it's constantly thinking, but I really think, I thought about it a lot because I got so many, I've been around like these wealthy people and I realized, what's the difference between them and me? What's the difference? We're the same, except they never have to consider other people. They really never have to. And then in that realization, I realized how much I kiss ass to people. And then I realized through that daily concern for others, that daily, what do you call it? Like politeness or,
practice.
What's that?
Practice.
It's like, well, it's a practice. It's a practice of not being a pain in the ass, not being the nail that sticks up all the time in every, like just being aware of it's kind of like, well, it's really like the wa, right? The Japanese wa. There's a great book, what is that called? The Meaning of Wa, or like,
You gotta have wa.
You gotta have wa. I think it's by that baseball player, Cromartie, I think is his name. He wrote it in Japan when he was playing for a Japanese team. It's an old book from like the 80s. But it's pretty funny. Because I think he wrapped like a telephone wire around tied him to a telephone pole. He was so pissed off when he first got to Japan, because the guy was doing this. And then he realized what wa was, the Japanese wa. And I think that's really what it is for humans. There's this wa, there's this group, there's where the group is working together. And I really think that this is the difference in Asian and Western, like modern Western, I should say, Western society was not always like this. It wasn't always broken. Western society was just like Asian society. Everybody worked together. If you look at the 1900s, they built those fucking skyscrapers in New York. Like it's so fucking fast, like 6 weeks. They were fucking rocking. Like everybody got along. Everybody worked together. The government, the people, the workers, the guys bringing the bricks, like everybody was like a well-oiled Japanese team, right? And then I don't know what happened, but it like fell apart. They don't value it anymore. Whereas the Japanese, they do still value that wa. I'm not saying the wa cannot be bad, but nothing is 100% good, right? So, but I think, especially for Westerners, to understand the value of the team working together, like when the Golden State Warriors were playing at their peak, right? Klay Thompson was like the 3rd best player, shooter of all time, but he would always play second fiddle to Steve Curry, because Steve Curry is the greatest shooter, right? And here he is, this guy who could be a star at any team, but he's playing a backup role, and he did that, and he was so reliable because whenever Steve was not open, then he would hit him, and he would just calmly, no ego, just can the shot, right? And it was like he was able to control his ego, and the whole team was doing that, right? That's teamwork, right? That's a team. That's like a fucking team, right? And then the team fell apart. When Clay got injured and he wasn't as good and he was older and he was demanding money and then the young guys were getting better, the whole wall fell apart because he couldn't accept, I believe he couldn't accept his new role. You know, now he's going to the Mavericks and he's going to try to, maybe he will. Maybe he will be the Clay of old and it'll all work out. But generally, like, I think that part of the WA is realizing that new people rise up. You know, that everything, like there's a time for everybody. Like everybody deserves a time. You know, and I think a lot of people, like especially a lot of leaders, they just always want to lead no matter what. And the thing is smart leaders bring leaders up. So everybody ends up being leaders, right? Because it's not a hierarchy. It's like it's more of a learning curve, right? So people learn and then they come up and then other people come up and everybody earns their way into being whatever they want to be, right? Or whatever that next thing is. So, but you got to earn it. Everybody's earning. Everybody's like earning it, right? And everybody like accepts, oh, you know, he's coming up, right? You can feel it. Like you can feel when somebody's getting their shit together. Like if they go to a bunch of summits, like you'll see somebody who's like, just doesn't see things that well, and then they suddenly get their shit together and change, you know? If you come to one of the summits, you've seen guys do this, and then other guys go the other way. They're like, fuck all this shit. Like, I'm not going to, you know? And then they kind of go down this road. You can see the comments. Right? They never really grow, right? It's like they've grown enough, right? I think that's another thing, too, is like realize that there's always another level to grow to through this cooperation, this humbleness, right? And also this intense striving. And there's a real, like Clay Thompson, there's kind of like, there's this real drive to be the best too, inside of that. It's like, I'm going to do this because it's the best way and I'm going to be the best. You know what I mean? It's not this thing, everybody gets a trophy. You want to be you want to fucking be up there, right? It's not like cooperation just to be low. No, fuck, you want to go all the way, right? You want to kick out and learn every aspect of life. Save money, have money in the bank, right? Have chicks, travel, be free. You know what I mean? Be like a leader in your family, right? So everybody looks up to you. You know, you want to you want to be the guy who everybody's like, fuck, that guy's in great shape, you know, for his age. You know, you want to have all that, right? You want to have a balance, right? Where you can do various things. You don't have any blind spots, right? But it all comes from hard work. Each thing is like hard work. You know, we're always like constantly improving. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I used to cuss a lot more, you know, and I still do it sometimes without thinking, but I cuss a lot less because I kind of realized at some point, you know, I was just kind of like, nobody really criticized me for it, but I was like, oh, I know what it was. At this, we did was it the Oakland Summit? I think it was the Oakland Summit. We went to Santa Cruz the last day. Yeah, you remember is that Oakland Summit? Yeah, Christmas Summit, right? And then we went to Santa Cruz, right? And we went to that golf course and the Frisbee golf. Yeah. And we were sitting there, and in the parking lot, there was these homeless guys. You know, a lot of guys didn't know they're homeless, but those were homeless guys. And they were all talking like I was talking. Like they were like using cuss words perfectly. Like they were like almost like masters of English. Like they were putting the right tone on it. It was funny. There was a humor in what they were talking about. It was all this kind of like dirty. And I listened to them. I thought, homeless guys have mastered like sarcasm and like the modern cussing or whatever you call it. Like they've mastered it. I thought, this thing is done. Like it used to be where like not many people really mastered the art of that. And when you didn't just say the bad word, you kind of like really put English on it and it was like perfect. You just like, you know, it was zinger, you know, you were like, and then I realized that period's over. If homeless guys have reached that level, then I thought, you know what, I got to get rid of this, you know, like this is no longer what it was, you know, like when I was younger, you know, because back then nobody said bad words. And so it was kind of like, oh, he talks like a trucker or you know, there was those guys and they didn't have any like style, right? You know, and then there was this style where you're talking dirty kind of like came out, and then it got more and more refined, and now it's well known. So I kind of like I learned, and I was like I don't want to sound like that homeless guy because I sounded just like him, right? And I was like that's no longer like that is nothing. Like and then they were losers, and those guys killed a guy a couple months later. Those guys were dangerous. Remember that? I don't even remember those guys. They had a real hard edge to them. They had
in the truck?
the guys that were standing in the parking lot.
Huh.
There were some guys, some homeless guys, and I was sitting there waiting for you guys, and they were there, and they had like a meanness to them. I could sense it. And then like 2 months later, I read that they killed a guy in that parking lot. Yeah, they killed a guy, and I was like, that makes sense. I could feel it. They were fucking bad. They were bad, and it's like, so I think that the process of growth and the hard, like, fighting through weaknesses, and it's this constant never ending. I think it's not through like someone berating you, but it's just a realization that you see the world suddenly like clearly a new way. It's like, no, it's not the way I thought. Or maybe it was, but it's not anymore. Now this has shifted and I need to shift. Or I can just unconsciously talk like a homeless guy. You know what I mean? Like the world shifted. So I need to shift. If I want to have any control of where I want to be seen or be, So it's just kind of like you're your own master by looking at things and then really, but it starts with people pointing it out. I think it's like people need to point it out because we're so blind in the beginning. I was like, oh, what? I'm good enough. Like most guys, they just can't take any criticism of anything. Like they really can't. Like I went to a men's group. I'm telling you right now, like it's really bad now. Like guys, they can't take any criticism. Nothing. The guy can be in the worst shape in the world. He's telling you how to get in shape, and he has no like self. What is it called? Awareness. Yeah, no self-awareness. That it's like, wait, if you knew that, and he felt like if I said you don't know this, you're stupid. That's what he was saying. We're not stupid, right? It's like, no, I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying you don't know this. Like, because if you knew this, you would like you could be a great investor. Like I was a great investor for stocks for years. I used to read every stock book, One Up on Wall Street. I bought Disney stock when I was like 11. I made a fortune. I bought Costco. I bought Walmart. I bought, what was the ones that were good? A bunch of good ones. I was like real disciplined. I would hold stocks. I'd save money. And then all of a sudden, in the bubble, I had this crazy friend, and he just convinced me to put in these crazy internet stocks, and I lost it all in one day, in an hour and a half. And then it was so painful because my whole self-esteem was built on being this disciplined guy. And I had been the ultimate idiot, and it was gone in an hour and a half. One bad night in 1999, the internet bubble. And it was gone. Like it sold at the bottom. I put in a sell order. It was like 80. It went down to like nothing and sold and went back up to 83. And then it went back down to nothing. But if I would have been able to control the sell order, when everybody in the market's selling, it just sells when it sells. And it sold at the bottom and then it popped back up. And I could have got all the money back. If I would have had control, if I just sat there and watched the screen and I could just say, sell, I would have got all my money back, plus a couple bucks. Instead, I lost my whole life savings, right? And so I was so good at saving money. I was so disciplined. I mean, you guys know me. I was like the most disciplined I was eating cans of tuna for years to save money. I mean, I bought rice like by the 100 pounds from the Iranians, like when they had a rice problem in Japan. Nobody wanted Thai rice. I bought Thai rice. There was bugs in it. Like I was putting water, cleaning, and bugs are floating up. I'm pouring the bugs out and cooking the rice, Like that's what I did to save that money. Like I worked so hard to save that fucking money. And then it was gone in an hour and a half. And also with that was my whole image as a guy who was good at stocks, And I mean, life is hard, man. Life is fucking hard. Because you do the right thing for so many years. You just have one fucking just insanity, you know, and then it's just all gone. I kind of think that's what humans do. Is we just have one insanity that ruins everything on every front, basically. It's like, and that's part of the humor of life, is you realize like you can be really good at something and still just be the worst, you know, in the end, right? So it's like a part of it is just humor, right? But also too, you can pick up the pieces, you know, and I did pick up the pieces, and I realized I needed to make more money. Like eating cans of tuna is one thing, but it was too much, put me at risk. I needed to make more money so I could make more mistakes. And that's when I started headhunting. That's exactly when I started headhunting. Because I was like, fuck, I need more money coming in. I can't just do this to myself again. Like earn, save, and then lose. Not that it's bad, but the risk is too high of me having another insane moment, you know. Or just bad luck, right? A war, currency devaluation, you know. And so I did improve, but I've never gotten to that same level of confidence with money that I did back then. Like, I mean, it really was hard on me. Oh, it was fucking hard. I'm serious. It was really hard. And it was just like, I just felt like I'd been doing this since I was a little kid. Yeah. I had been saving money. Like, I was always the kid. Like, you know, when I was like, I don't know, 10, my grandmother, who was crazy with money, she spend money. And she gave me money and she goes, what are you going to use it for? I remember we were driving in the car by Pines Park and I go, I'm going to save it. And she goes, I wouldn't have given you the money if I would have known you were going to save it. You know, she thought I was going to go buy candy or something because I was 10, right? But I thought, man, she's an idiot. I was like 10 and I knew that. I was like, I got to save money, you know. And then you earn, you know, save, buy a house or whatever, you know. Have a bunch of money, you know, got to save money. Got to have discipline, you know. And I'm like looking at this old lady who didn't. And that was my personality. Like, that really was my personality. Fixing my motorcycle by myself, even though I had the money to buy, you know, a new motorcycle, right? Or, you know, I would shop for another motorcycle. Like, the guy bought it, crashed it once. And such a pussy. Yeah, and I'd buy it super cheap from that guy. Like, my whole life was, and then to lose it all in an hour and a half, man. Whoa, fuck. And with it, like, just any kind of respect, too. Because people used to come to me for stock. Like, I was the stock guy, every stock pick guy. They're like, what do you think? You know, what do you think, Paul? What do you think? And I'd say, I don't know, you know, 3M maybe, you know. And then it would work, you know. So I was all in my little friends group, right? You know, we would be like, I was the stock pick guy. And I had to kind of let that all go, like that kind of image. And I realized, like, I got a weakness here. I can blame it on other people, but plus there's just unknowns in life, right? So I think with all this striving and struggling, you got to realize, too, it's that life's a comedy, right? You know, you could, like, work out so hard and then a piano just falls out of a building and just crushes you, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, there is that to life, too, right? It's like, we're like, I don't know. But yeah, I think back to the beginning is like realizing that you got to earn it to be a good person. You got to earn it every day in the things you do, the things you say, the way you treat people. I think that's a very, very important thing. And also the understanding that you don't have to do that if you have money. But you realize that it's better sometimes. It is better to have to do something. Like, there's something in humans. We just get off, when we just too selfish, we just get very strange, you know? Like, very, very, like, weird. Like, I remember there was one scene in a movie where the guys had money all of a sudden, and they told the guy, they were like, this guy had a suit on, and they, he was like a butler kind of guy, like a British accent. They were like making him, and then they said, I want your jacket. Give me your jacket. How much do you want your jacket? He's like, well, sir, and then they like gave him the money. They take the jacket, throw it on the ground, you know, and then they eventually made him get down to his underwear. They're giving him money. And the guy was like this hard, you know, like it was, it was the ultimate humiliation, right? But I think that is kind of a temptation, right? For humans, right? There's something in us, like, there is something like, there is some side of you that's not beautiful, right? But when you can't do that, when you have to earn it, I personally think you're better off. And I think that's why people say, well, what is money? Why do people with money get weird? It's because they're outside of the cooperation of like humanity. They're outside of this thing in another position. I think it's important to realize that they are going through some very heavy stuff, because that's why like rock stars kill themselves and everything. It's like when you get out of that thing, it's pretty weird. And some really smart people, like they become Hollywood stars and then they become recluses, or they leave and they totally change because they realize like this really was not the answer. Like for my kids, for myself, like this was not the road. I got to the top of the road and I really realized like not only was it not the road, but it really wasn't the road. Like they were not flexing by saying it wasn't the road. You know what I'm saying? There's that kind of guy too, right? They're just saying this is a bad road for me. Bad road. Because I know what I'm going to do with that road. And that's not good. And I know my kids are going to do with that road. And that's a lonely road, right? That's why so many drug people are on drugs, rich people, right? So many kids of rich people are on drugs. It's crazy. Because they are not disciplined by the cooperation. This is what I think. I never really heard this really said, but I think you get disciplined by that. There's a humbling. We need to be like this. Like it's important for humans as our development is to be aware of our need to cooperate. You don't have to run away, but you do have to, I think, be aware of what essentially makes you human, right? It forces you to have those little habits, right? You know what I mean? Like, just little things. Just be aware of whatever it is that you're doing. And in a group, it could be anything. I don't want to say any things because then, yeah, it would be, yeah. But, let's get to the water. But that's my thoughts on money. Like real money. Small money is a fake thing. Like people with $10 million, they're penniless, really. They have nothing. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. 10 million is like pennies. You don't have the kind of power I'm talking about with 10 million. It's like nothing. You have luxury. You can buy the can of soup you want. You can hire a cook. You can have a nice car. You can get divorced a couple times. You have the luxury of making some mistakes. But it's not the same as when you have like. It's not the same as when you really reach. I guess it's like man was always trying to get to outer space, and they never could. Right, the balloons couldn't get up there, and nothing could. And then finally, when they popped into space, and then they were floating in weightlessness, and then it's really hard to get back. Right. I think that's what it's like. It's that same dynamic. It's like we're in here having to struggle. Yeah, it is the same dynamic because when you're in space, right. Your body gets all fucked up because you have no gravity pulling you down. And the gravity is what makes your bones strong and your ligaments. And what else does it do? Anything else?
All kinds of shit.
Yeah, gravity does good shit.
Muscle loss, like it's a couple percent. Like if you're in like the guys are in are in space for like 180 days or longer. Like they can barely walk when they get back, or they have to rehabilitate. It's like they've been in a coma or something.
Right.
Like their body's just wasted away.
Yeah, like they've been floating in water or something. Yeah. And it's like these are like very, very healthy people who do sport and lift weights before they go, right? And they can hardly walk when they get back. That's another big thing. My dad worked at the Space Center, right? And there's a lot of things that they covered up. And one of them was the fact that the astronauts were miserable in space. Mm-hmm. And they would tell them, okay, you guys got to act happy because the kids are looking up to you. And we're going to do a show, and everybody's going to be smiling, talking about the view. That's what they used to do. They used to tell them, hey, you're never above. And that's what I liked about the old way. The old way, you were always kind of part of the system, even if you were rich. Like, there was always somebody that kept you in line. Like, now with Bitcoin and stuff, like, you can really get out there where nobody can fucking tell you. There's not one person present, nobody. You're completely floating in space, right? Back then, even if you were Joe DiMaggio, the company would tell you what to do, and those old actors, they didn't make that much money because they said, look, you're getting all the pussy you want, you're fucking the big star, you got girls lining you got enough, right, and then the actors were happy with that back in the day, to have a house and have everybody know they're famous and everything, but they were still in this system where the company really owned them, right? I'm not saying it's a good thing. That's a difficult part. But it did keep them more humble. They kept them more real. Like if you look at Joe DiMaggio, like I think today if you went up to the top NBA players and told them to do something, they'd just say, fuck you. They'd just be like, fuck you. No one has to tell me, you know. And okay, fine, whatever. You know, NFL, what does it matter? But it's like, what I'm saying is humanity loses something when we no longer have to like cooperate and be nice. We never have to like do things for people or agree with people, or you never have to do anything. You can just deliberately be just pissing everybody off and just humiliating people, like, and they can't do anything except they could physically shoot you or something. But other than that, there's nothing they can do, because you could like literally just like these guys could literally just go to you and say, you know, bank, I'm just going to sue you into hell forever. Like, I'm just going to file lawsuits against you for the rest of your life. You're just going to be in absolute hell. Like, you're going to be followed around by public and private investigators who will just find anything to sue you. And I'm just going to put $2 billion in his lawsuits against you. You're totally fucked. You're going to end up in prison. Like, and your whole life is going to be in court. And there's nobody can stop it, because you could have the lawsuits coming from everywhere. Like different companies, different places. Like they could literally just ruin you. I realized this once when there was a really rich guy got angry at me, and I realized, fuck, this guy could really ruin my life easy. Like, because I realized how much vulnerability I had. Once I was in a lawsuit, I realized, oh shit, these things are not fair. Like, if you really wanted to ruin somebody with lawsuits, and you really had serious money, Elon Musk money, you could just absolutely make it. Pay witnesses, like the whole thing could just be a big farce where you're just fighting against stuff all the time, like harassment charges, like everything could be cooked up, right? And make it look really realistic. You'd end up in prison, actually. There was no way you could fight. Isn't that scary? Like they couldn't, you know, you always think, well, they could, you know, put me 6 feet under, but like this is kind of worse, right? Because everybody thinks you're a bad guy, right? Like, you know, that's your reputation in the end. You know, that's the worst. You have no freedom, plus just the stress of just these new kids, you know, oh my God, you know, constant fucking criminal, fucking, you know, private property, like whatever the fuck, just, you know. So like we are vulnerable, right? We are, you know. And I think in a sense, like, look at all the kings of England. Like I look at everybody who's at the very top, right? They get pretty fucked up, right? And now we got normal people in that position, right? And if you ever meet them, man, they can be pretty mean, man. It's pretty nasty, you know. I think it's good. I think it's good to strive for money. It's good to strive to have that money just because it's a mountain that you might want to climb. I think that's good. But the problem is, if you really get there, you really better be pretty self-aware before you get there. Otherwise, it's gonna take you away. Because the other people around you are like that, you know, like they just get like that. And like remember in the bubble, you know, there was like that guy, do you know the hostess who got killed? I forget her name. She was British. Do you remember her name? Really? You don't know? Oh, this was huge news in Japan. Yeah, oh yeah, huge news. Anyway, she got killed, and oh God, I can't remember her name. I knew a girl who lived with her. She worked for my company. But anyway, so she got killed by this rich Japanese guy. It was at the peak of the bubble money. And when he finally got caught, he was so rich that the police couldn't touch him. Like nobody could touch this guy, even though they knew. You know, they knew. He just had so much power in Japan that there was fuck all anybody could do. And even when somebody was killed, like a foreigner, like it was still this guy who had protection, you know. And finally, when they finally broke down all that protection, and public sentiment turned against him, and everybody that he could buy off would be too ashamed or whatever. Like everything kind of can break down for these guys eventually, but it takes a lot of pressure, right? And this was a lot of pressure. Lindsay something, yeah. And her dad actually contacted me because I posted on that I knew, you know, her roommate. And he contacted me. He said, do you know anything? We talked, and I really didn't know anything to help, but I wanted to help. But anyway, eventually they got into his house and everything, and he had buried her in a beach in Shonan somewhere. near, not far from Enoshima, like that area, in like a little cave. And then they had videos of him drugging women, like endless, like other women had died, you know, and then he had like, he just didn't care. And I knew a Japanese guy like that. He's now gone, but I knew a guy like that. He had that kind of money during the bubble. And I don't know if he did it, but I know he was sympathetic to that guy. Because his thing was kind of like power and sex. And he liked, like that guy who killed the British, he liked to have sex with girls that were passed out. And so, you know, that's where he filmed it, right? That was his fetish, right? So, like, don't think that you wouldn't have a weird fetish like that. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not just cooperation. Like, you might have something kind of dark in you. And, like, it's better that you can't do it, basically. Like, it's okay to have a dark fetish as long as you can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it is. Because, you know, just don't get in a position where you can do it. Because then you're going to do it. You know, and then it's just like, fuck. If there is a hell or a dark side, that's it, right? You don't want to be that person. You know, it's okay to have like, I think we all have like there's something we would do if we could, right? You know, like one of my friends told me one of his things. I won't say what it was, but it was like, whoa. I was like, whoa, because this guy's really nice. And he goes, if I was invisible, I would do this. And I was like, really? I was like, I would never do that. You know, and I was like, he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, fuck, wow. This guy's a really nice guy. But if he was invisible, he would fucking, you know. I was like, oh, shit. What the fuck, right? You know. So like, I think that people can kind of hate yourself for the wrong reasons. It's not that you have, like, a dark desire. I think it's just awareness of your desires and self-awareness where you're like, you know what? I know I have this desire, and I never want to be in a position where that becomes real. And that's where you kind of redeem yourself, right? Because you know that you would, right? But you don't. And we all have these things. These fucking morons now, the SJWs, they think they're perfect and everybody else is bad. They're the scariest people. I'm totally serious. I'm like Cambodia's, like Pol Pot scary. These people that don't realize their dark side, like, they're scary. Like, they will do the darkest shit. Those people. As soon as they get the chance. Yeah. And you know, like, when you're even on the road to being honest with yourself, you're not on that road, you know, but you could still, if you reach, you know, certain levels of freedom, right? So it's like, we want freedom. Like, I strive for freedom from everything. But the only freedom I don't have is the freedom from myself and the discipline I put on myself. Because sometimes I'm so free that I'm out there just wherever. I could do things that I don't do. Like, my freedom not being tied to any neighborhood or place. Like, there's certain things that I have available. You know, we were talking about one last night, right? There's things I have once in a while comes up where there's a chance and I just pass. I don't do it. Because I know I could do it, you know, but I know that I don't want to find out. Like, I just don't want to be on the other side of that. I think there's certain things. Yeah. I think the last thing I'll say is I was really angry one time. Like, this guy fucked me over super bad, right? Super bad, right? Like, the worst ever, right? And so I went to a friend of mine who I knew grew up in the mafia in New York, right? And I said, well, what should I do? And so he told me, did I ever tell the story? Okay, so he said, when I was 10, he goes, my dad took me downstairs and he shot a guy in the head, and then we buried him in our basement and put concrete over him. And his dad was teaching him the ways of the mafia. He said, son, you got to know this. That sometimes somebody's done something, and this is not a movie. This is like a real guy I know. And he said that was kind of the beginning of his understanding of, you know, the code and ethics. And then he's been basically in the mafia ever since. So I knew the guy, and so I called him, and I didn't want to say his name. So he said, okay, what did this guy do? You know, what did this guy do? You know, he was like a judge all of a sudden, like an arbitration. You know, he's going to listen to it. Like, what's fair? What needs to be done here? Like, he's going to listen to my grievance, right? Because I wasn't saying to do anything. All I was saying is, like, what do you think? Like, you're willing to do stuff in your life. You're outside the box, right? Like, what do you think about this level of fucking over? Like, what's your take? What's the fair thing to do here? You know, because I got to do something. You can't just let somebody just fuck you over and do nothing, right? You can't just be a pussy, I don't think. You got to kind of fair revenge that you keep your self-confidence, right? But also you don't go over the line so that you say, I have now become a bad person. So I always want to know that line. You know, I really do. This is not from movies. I could sense it when people outside the box, like, they live in a different world. Anyway, so he listened to it and he goes, okay. He goes, that's just barely over the line that you could kill the guy. And that would be fair, as he told me. He said, but, he says, I don't think you should. He said, because if you do, you'll always have that option. Because now you'll know how to do it. He goes, I'll teach you how to do it. You'll never get caught. He goes, but I tell you, if you do it, he goes, you're a very carefree, easy-go-lucky guy. He goes, I think this would change you at a level that you don't understand. So he said, call me tomorrow. Tell me what your answer is. So I called him the next day, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. And it was a good decision. It was a good decision. Because I did think about it. I thought, you got to get revenge. You can't let people walk on you, right? You got to be fair. And this guy was giving me the green light, But I realized that, I guess for myself, and I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. Maybe the right thing to do was the other one for somebody else. But for me, I like being carefree. I like justice. Now, I ended up fucking the guy over, getting just enough that felt good, right? I found my own way, right? And it was solid, right? And I felt like, okay, this is enough for me, right? This is enough. I don't have to go his way, right? Because I didn't want to be the person that had crossed that line. Because I knew he was my friend and he was trying to help me. And he said, I know your personality and I don't think you should do this. And he wasn't saying you're not capable, because he's like, knows I am. He's like, I just don't think you should. Like, I don't think the other side of that is where you want to be. And then, but I thought about it. I took it to the right guy who cared, right? And I told him the truth and I got the answer and I listened very carefully and made a very difficult decision, and it was an extremely interesting experience for me, because I learned like about myself, like some things I don't want to know, some places I don't want to go, like some things you think, well, I want to know everything, right? Because a lot of times I do want to know the truth about everything, but there's certain things I don't want to know, and it's just because of my personality. Like, you guys might want to know it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I don't judge at all, because this he was given the green light, like it was enough, right? But for me, I thought, I'd rather just be easygoing and just not have that burden. Because he said, the thing is once you've crossed that line, it's what he said, is you'll always have that option. It will always come up in your mind. Every traffic accident, every guy pulls a gun on you, everybody fucks you over. You're always going to think that you have this power. And he said, that will not be a happy thing. That you don't want to really have that choice if you don't need to. I think people that go to war, they have to make that choice. Every soldier has to make that choice, right? When he pulls the trigger, right? He's got to make that choice. So society condones this. It's just only under their umbrage, right? So as a soldier or as a policeman or as a guy working the gallows or basically as a judge, right? So we condone the right to have that life or death choice as a humanity. I personally think that men have gotten so pussified that we no longer realize that we are the choice. All these groups, military and police, they're all just fake. The purpose of them is to do what we should do as men. We are wise, and we have always been like this. The whole idea of mob rule is so ridiculous because it's men like us that have made society what it is. We stood in judgment and made, like, we get together as a group and say, this is the situation. This needs to be fixed. What are we going to do? Okay, who's going to do it? And we would decide, and we wouldn't take it lightly because, you just don't, there's always risk, massive risk back then to taking any kind of, it's not like these days where you got the guy all helpless and handcuffs. Back in the old days, when you meted out justice, there's always a chance he was going to get you, like somehow, or one of his friends or somebody. Like, it was not clean like now. Like when you made that volunteer to go in, wake him up and do whatever, that was a fucking risky maneuver that you're risking. But that's what men did in society. That's what brought men to, and now we took all that power away. We say, no, you can't do that because only bad people do that. But actually, as men, we have that mechanism inside us. We have that wisdom where we can think, we can be wise, and we can decide, and we have the balls to go do it. And I think this was what men needed. I personally think this is the biggest thing men don't have anymore, is that now it's all about a badge. It's all about the government telling you what to do. I think that men in the old days, we looked at it. It was kind of like these days now, and you'll watch a movie in the military where they will force the guys to do something they know is not going to work, just for whatever reason, rigmarole in the military, or there's a lot of scenes like this, right? There's a great scene in Band of Brothers, actually. Do you guys see that one? There's one scene where they go and they cross the river, somewhere near Bastogne or something. Do you remember what that was?
What in Band of Brothers? Where
Yeah,
they're in the French lines.
Yeah,
and they have to cross in between the water to go rescue some, or to fuck up some house.
Find if there's any hostages.
Right, and there's no hostages.
There's no hostages.
And they have to go over, and the second time, right? The second
yes,
time,
yes.
They had to go over, and the CO was like, okay, they went over, but they didn't actually go over.
Right.
They didn't.
And he made that speech where he's like, basically, they're like, what we did last night? Well, we're going to do it all again. And the guys are just like, because he was the new CO and he was with them, right? He used to be their leader in the group. And everybody knew he was the most wise, brave soldier. So when he said they got to go the second time, everyone's like basically he's become an idiot. Like he's become like them. Right. And then he says, and you're going to go at 8 o'clock and then you're going to go to sleep and wake up and say you did it. And they look at each other like, is he saying what he's saying? I think he's saying what he's saying. Don't say anything. And he's like, yes, sir.
Sir.
Yeah. And because he could see it was unwise. And they would ruin the morale. And they didn't lose anybody the night before, but they're surely going to lose somebody because it was totally ridiculously dangerous. And there was no hostages. Like they had made a serious attempt, right? So I think that men, that was a really, that's what it was. They were trying to teach you. You have the wisdom inside yourself, right? To make the right decision. That's what they're trying to show. I think we have that. And it is sad that we don't have it. They don't let us, right? They say, well, you're dangerous. Mob rule. It's not mob rule. We made this place. And there can be no denying that. We brought humanity from just utter chaos to a wonderful structured society where everything's just gotten better, right? Men did that without police. I mean, you look at the U.S., those towns, it was a joke. There was one deputy and he was there was no law. It was just the groups of people would take care of things. And somebody was, the Eskimos did the same thing. If the Eskimos had one guy would fuck someone else's wife and cause too many troubles in that way, they would take him out and throw him off into the cold water at night. And then they'd come back and not talk about it. Because that guy was a problem that wasn't going away. he was totally upsetting everything in the society, right? And he didn't give a shit, right, about because those fucking Eskimos had to stick together. I mean, they were like just a pussy hair from dying all the time of cold, right? So it was like they needed to always know they could rely. And if one guy was like fucking everybody's wives and fucking everything up, that was not cool. Like that was not cool at all to them, for their system, right? Yeah. And they had to get rid of the guy. And so that's what society used to make those decisions. And then as a man, breaking all the rules and people's nanny. Now I feel like everybody can go nanny all the time because there's no people who say, wait a second, the buck stops here. Like, no, that's not cool. You know what you're doing and it's causing a lot of trouble. And then men to get together and say, that's not cool. That's the good side of men. That's what we are. Other than that, we're just following rules and, eating food and doing all this other shit. But it's like that decision that was always men, never women. That was us, 100%. And I really think the professional police and the military and the Coast Guard, it just ruined it for guys. Because you're no longer trusted as a man to be what you are, a wise warrior. You know what I mean? We are. And when you're expected of it, it comes out of you. It only comes out of you when you need it, right? You think, oh, I couldn't do that or I'm not. But you are. It's in you and it comes out in that moment, right? Or somebody isn't, right? And you can see that they're not the guy that they say, right? But the truth comes out. And I think men love that truth in themselves and truth in others, and that you can trust other people because you know how they act when they can do whatever they want, right? You know what I mean? So I think it's all tied in together with money. Money now allows that power, and it's this kind of weird
kind of imbalance.
It's a weird thing where you're no longer, and everybody else is just kind of playing by the. You're just like, you can literally do snuff videos the rest of your life and never get any trouble, right? You can just be as evil as you want, basically. Like that Japanese guy, I forget his name. What was his name? Ebola. It was like Ebola or something. He had some name like that. But anyway, like that guy, he just had nothing to stop him, right? Until finally, I think with him is he had his run during the bubble and he was kind of done, and that's when he got caught. That's when society likes to catch you, is when you're finished your crimes. Like at the end of your crimes. They really, that's what I don't like about the police. They don't do it the way men are like, wait, this is just starting with this guy. This is just starting. He's in the heat of this and he's not going to stop. We need to stop this. Right? But society, they need all the clues and everything has to fit into every box, and he's got to have a decision finally in the end. When he's basically done being bad, that's when they finally nail the guy. And it's the same with a politician. He's taking bribes, everything. Like, let's say Biden, I think he's taking bribes. But, like, he won't get caught until he's out and the years are passed or whatever. And they can finally say, well, obviously, tens of millions of dollars came in from these sketchy companies and there was hundreds of shell companies. Like, obviously he was taking bribes, right? But society couldn't accept that the vice president was being bought, back then, and then maybe even now, but definitely as vice president, right? He was bought. Nobody wants to accept that the system doesn't work. Like the vice president, the president could be corrupt. It could be selling out the future of the country for money. Yeah, just for money.
Just for some fucking stupid corporate.
Just some numbers in a fucking book. Because he's ready to die, right? And it was all for nothing. To give to a drug addict, crazy son. That was to pass on to a drug addict, insane, gun-wielding, maniac, right? Driving his car, millions, the ultimate child, right? So that's what happens. So it's like he ignored his dark side and he embraced it and said, hey, I'm vice president. I can really get bribes, but I'm not going to do it. My son will do it, right? To be near me and be influenced. So he's like, he sold out the most valuable thing, I believe, in order to get the least valuable thing and to learn the lesson that it didn't matter. But a lot of people get hurt, right? In the meantime, right? Like, who knows what's sold? That's why they don't want to face it. The nuclear codes, what was sold? Like, what was sold? Like, things get sold that are valuable. They don't just give money for, there's like things, specific things. Where are the bases? What algorithm are you using to protect that satellite? That whatever 264, what's the one? They're like,
there's a lot.
There's certain things where they're just like, we just need to know this one thing, and then here's, and you start selling it, like, there are huge implications, right? Huge implications, right? And they might not even show. They never traced back, right? But even if there never is a war, once the enemy lets the other guys know, hey, by the way, we have total access to all your shit in space, and you can't change it because you can't get it to come down and you can't go up and fix it. So basically everything in space is useless when there's a war. So we'll let you pretend that you guys have this great defense, right? But you got to give us the shit that we want. Otherwise, we won't let you pretend. You know what I mean? We're going to fucking take them all out. And then the guys at the top are like, okay, what do you guys need? And basically get blackmailed. That's how it works. That's how corruption works. It's like not always visible. Sometimes you never see it because just the fact that you could do it is enough to make you sell everything out, right? Because you don't want to be the Minister of Defense or whatever the title is when this has happened, right? Nobody wants to admit. Society as a whole agrees. That's why I like individual men being the arbitrators of this, because we're going to disagree. And there's a point where somebody will say, well, who cares what anybody thinks? We have to admit our satellites, for example, are totally a joke. There's just space debris in 2 seconds. Same with our submarines or whatever, Like now they know where they are. So basically, we got to go from scratch. We got to tell everybody. We got to take a hit on this chin, maybe risk an invasion, because we got to have kids going through school wanting to be brilliant enough to solve these problems that we have. We have to tell them the problems. Hey, kids, here's what we need done. You can be a big hero if you do this. And the boys are like just studying math because they're like, I want to be the guy solving that. So that's why honesty is so important. It's because the younger generations, like, they want to do good, but you got to let them know what's the real. If you cover it up, they get up there and they're like, what the fuck? This shit is a joke, and they're like, yeah, but it's like, no, that's not. I always take the hard road and say, we have no defense. It's been sold out, Like, these are now visible. Those are going to get destroyed 2 seconds in a war. Like, basically, we need to rethink everything. New technologies, new materials. And we need to build it from scratch. And we need to admit publicly that you can invade us easily right now. You know what I mean? That's what it takes. All your enemies will know now. You have basically a joke of a defense. But that's the only way. You can't keep it secret. And men can make those decisions. And say, well, if they do invade, we're going to do this. And then shit really comes down to the guys who sold out. Because then people are being honest. As long as everybody's fake and everybody wants things to look good, they're going to protect the people who really stabbed everybody in the ass, right? I think that's like, to me, this is so disgusting. Like, this thinking just is not, it's just so disgusting. It's so pathetic. The whole thing is, to me, so pathetic. You risk nuclear war, so fucking what? That could happen anytime anyway. Right? I mean, you think you're protecting yourself by not telling people? No. Bite the bullet, man. In your life and as a country. Bite the fucking bullet and admit the fucking truth. That's ugly. That's nasty. That's complicated. And then you can start to say, okay, and then people know, here's the truth, right? And then your friends might say, hey, that thing, I think there's a way to another way to do it, because they'll know where that you, not only do you have a weakness, but you're willing to change. Like the other people around you have to know that you are a person who is truly striving for, like, what do you call it? Like, any good advice is welcome at the end of the day. Because you're just like, I do want to know. Like, for me, the mindset is this. It's just like, I can read a book, but it doesn't matter how good the book is. Has anybody written a book? Anybody here? You written a book? Okay, so if you write a book, if you make a YouTube video, if you write a book, if you write anything kind of a column in a newspaper, you have to think of what the average person knows and what will the average person understand and what does the average person have to do. You have to kind of like dumb it down. No, not dumb it down, but you have to generalize it enough that it's useful to a lot of people, right? You can't write an article for your sister, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, like, because the other people, they're not your sister, right? So as an article writer or something, you're always writing for general things, right? And so a book is never as, like, I would rather have a bunch of people around me who read books and are improving themselves and are living books, right? And so when I need help, I've read all the books and I've already done everything that generally can happen, but somebody can specifically come to me and say, you're doing this thing and here's what it's causing you, and I think you could do this, it'd be better. It's very specific out of billions of people. It's just me with the right thinking, the right advice. That kind of advice, I'm always open to because it's so valuable. It's so incredibly valuable for me. But anything general that you read or you see on YouTube, it's only like, it's so general. It might just touch a chord and change your life. I'm not saying. But if you really want to keep going on that journey of improvement, you need people, living people watching you who are like that and can say, hey, you might not have noticed this, but it's not the 1970s, like just things like that. You're still doing the same haircut, it makes you look old. It doesn't help you. People no one's going to say anything, but it puts you in this category that I don't know if you're aware that, it's not helping you, and then you're like, fuck, that's the best advice. Cause it's like, it's specific, and it's loving, right? It's loving, it's like wanting to help, but that's the next stage is you start with the general stuff as a pyramid upside down, right? Coming down until you get to people in your face that can do that on the fly as you do things, see you avoid something, like just whatever it is, somebody might always be busy when we're climbing a mountain or something, right? And then somebody might say, well, you're not busy. You just don't want to climb a mountain, but you don't want to say it. And then he's like, oh, you know what? that time, you're always busy, And it just happened to be right when we were going to climb a mountain, And the guy's like, okay, and then it starts to get real, right? No one can do that on the internet to you, right? So that's why you need friends who are in the same mindset because we always have things that we can't see. And we're always changing. And our friends are always changing, right? So it's a never-ending struggle. It's basically the good human struggle, I guess I could call it. It's the good human struggle. It's that struggle that somehow makes you a better man. Like in the end, you overcome every obstacle. Like you just keep knocking them out, and you keep moving and forward. And in the end, you feel great. You feel like life was. I kicked ass, with what I had, I did great, I think that's the end there.